This hill is called Castle Hill. Local legend says there may be a castle somewhere in the area, possibly dating from the Norman period.
Just a fair old way up there, though, isn't it, hey?
And the landowners believe that the lost castle is sitting on top of their hill waiting to be discovered.
We have to do a nice flat site, and this is what they come up with.
But there are no clear written records and no obvious reason why a castle should be here, as there's nothing to defend. So was a castle ever built on this site? If so, who built it and why? As usual, we've got just 3 days to find out. Mind you, it's taken me the best part of 3 days just to climb up here.
Where are we going to set up base camp?
Here? At 450 feet, Castle Hill in South Somerset is the biggest hill for miles around.
Come on!
Until we sort out a vehicle route, it's a real challenge for everyone who wants to get to the top.
He adopts the rambler attitude with a rucksack on the back.
He was walking like that when he left the bar.
Jimmy! Did nobody tell you you can get a vehicle up here?
The hill lies a couple of miles northwest of the village of Crewkerne and 1 mile southeast of Hinton St George. John's magnetic survey has given us a promising first target. It looks like there was something on the summit of Castle Hill. It's a good place to start, and Phil's wasting no time in marking out the first trench.
You ever thought of getting a job at the council? Hey?
At least we've got a good start with this fantastic geophys.
Yeah, we have. It looks as though on the top of the hill here, we've got what could be a big structure.
Yeah.
It's the prime location for some sort of tower.
Yeah. Keep. Something like that, yeah.
Do you often get stone Norman castles turning up?
You get stone keeps, even if the rest of it is timber. You get a mound with a tower on the top or a tower with a mound packed round it.
Well, we've got this lovely geophys. Where do you want to put in the first trench?
Anywhere in the middle there, just to see what we're getting.
To see what it looks like. Got everything to play for with it. But let's have a look, let's see.
So trench 1 is going in slap bang on top of the hill, where geophys is picking up signs of an intriguing structure.
When you're ready.
With a bit of luck, it could even turn out to be a castle keep. That's exactly what the landowners, the Irishes, would like us to find. Sons Andrew and Paul Irish have been fascinated by the giant hill in their backyard for as long as they can remember.
So, guys, that's in your back garden?
It is. It's been a fantastic feature of our childhood, really, having the hill there, all the stories that go with it, and yeah, a bit of an adventure playground in itself, really.
What's the local folklore that suggests that there was a castle up there?
Well, so far as we know, there was some sort of medieval castle there.
So you want us to find some definitive evidence of the castle?
It'd be fantastic. It's really hard imagining people living up on top of the hill. So it'd be incredible to try and imagine how the building was up there and how dominant it must have been in the landscape.
Let's hope we can solve the mystery for them and prove that their hill was indeed the site of a medieval castle.
Well, there we are, look. That's South Somerset.
Meanwhile, Mick and Alex have hauled themselves up the hill to survey the wider area. Could there be a reason hidden in the landscape as to why you'd build a castle on this spot?
For me, it's the sort of strategic significance of this location.
I think that's the thing, you know, because that's where the Somerset levels are, which is boggy and waterlogged for probably 6 months of the year at that time.
Yep.
So anybody coming from the east, from Winchester, from London, going down to the southwest peninsula that way, have really got to come through a relatively narrow gap.
So this could be controlling
I think so.
that corridor and the kind of traffic that would be going down here. Not just military traffic, we've got...
No, I mean, you know, you've got people who are trading, there are goods moving about, but the significance is when an army comes through.
Yeah.
If you could perhaps map just what area of ground it can dominate.
I've got just the tool, Mick, but it involves a bit of technology.
OK, well, let's try it.
Whatever was built up here may have overlooked a trade route and played a vital defensive role. So it's entirely possible it was a castle. Mary Ann and castles expert Mark Morris are looking through the local historical records for any mention of one in the area.
This is a mid-12th century charter. It's given by Baldwin, Commes Exon, Earl of Exeter or Earl of Devon. And at some point midway in the charter, he says, Castri Mei de Crewkerne, my castle of Crewkerne. There you have it, in black and white. We have a castle at Crewkerne, and this is a document from 1148.
And are they talking about that castle?
Possibly. It has to be said, we're not exactly in the middle of Crewkerne right now.
No, it's a couple of miles away.
There could be any number of hills or castle sites around here.
So it's back to the archaeology to give us some answers.
I think so.
Keep digging.
The historical charter proves that somewhere in the vicinity there must be a lost medieval castle, but it doesn't tell us what it would have looked like or precisely where it was built. Phil's making good progress in his trench and is already unearthing what could be the foundations of a large building. How you getting on, mate?
Oh, really well, Tony. I mean, this trench is absolutely diddled with archaeology, and we think we might be beginning to get the lines of robbed-out walls. You've got a very, very good edge.
Explain to me why you're confident that's a good edge, because I see the same colour there as I see there.
There's one, and there's the other. That one has got sand and nothing much else. This has got loads and loads of little stones in it. Totally different.
OK, yeah, I believe you.
So we've got stony stuff across here, and there we think we've probably got the other edge. You can see here it's very, very sandy, and here we've got this sort of stony, gritty stuff. And then out on this side, beyond where we think the wall line might be, look, we've got masses and masses of stone rubble. Now, whether or not that's where they've demolished the wall and thrown out the stone that they don't need and taken away the stone that they do need, I don't know. So it's looking good. And we have also got our first piece of pot.
Can you date that?
12th century,
Ooh.
or about there.
Yeah.
It looks like we've got a really big building here.
But is the building large enough to be a castle? The results of the radar are now in, and as we suspected, confirm the existence of a large rectangular structure on top of the hill.
As we go into the ground, you can start to see this rectangular structure taking form.
That's great, isn't it?
I mean, it's looking more and more like a keep. We've got this clear ditch following this line. So what we plan to do is put a trench across there to look at that ditch, see if it's related to the structure.
Is it me, or does that look absolutely central to this rectangle?
Yeah, but if it was a hall block with a first floor hall, then this could be a pillar supporting some sort of vault in the middle.
So where's that on the ground?
If we've got this big pier, it's going to be at this point here, and that'll be supporting the upper floors.
It's starting to get a bit exciting, isn't it? So we're extending Trench 1 by 3 metres to look for this mysterious central feature and to see whether Mick's grand ideas about this site are correct, while Rakshar and Matt are opening up a second trench on the lower slopes over what appears to be a ditch.
See the orange just coming up there, the blob that we're coming through could be this ever so slightly darker bit, couldn't it?
Because we're trying to look for an anomaly first, and then the ditch should be a bit further up the hill.
Down at our base camp, Alex is using some specialist computer software called Viewshed Analysis. It maps the entire area that can be seen from the top of Castle Hill.
What we do with Viewshed Analysis is we take a point in the landscape, which we've taken from up there in Castle Hill, OK, and what we then map is all the other places on the landscape that can be seen from that point, and that's what you can see in the green.
That's very good, isn't it?
We can see all of this with the naked eye when we're up there, but this really helps us to map it. Just looking here at the Fosse Way, OK, the Roman road, which is something we could see parts of from up on the hill. Well, this confirms we can actually see here where the Fosse Way crosses the River Parrett.
That's a really important point to control that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I notice you've got on the map here Crow Castle, because this might be the earlier castle, mightn't it?
Well, this is the thing. This early documentary reference we've got refers to a castle at Crook.
Yeah.
And for me, the place name, Crow Castle, is so similar to that early reference.
Yeah.
And the proximity to Crook Crewkerne as well, which we know was an important Anglo-Saxon market town and mint, might suggest that this is one of the first places you put a castle.
Yeah, I think you ought to go and have a look at this and see whether there's anything to see at all on the ground, but not before you've had a cup of tea.
I think I will do.
So Alex and Mark are going to investigate another contender for the castle in the documents, nearer the town of Crewkerne. But with its spectacular views of the area, our Castle Hill is still a prime candidate. And some new finds from Rakshaw's Trench are looking very promising.
What you got, George? Pots, lots and lots of them. Look at those. Isn't that fantastic? Maybe getting on for 20 shirts come out already, just while the guys have been cleaning the top of it.
Trench too?
Yeah. There's no glazed wares, there's none of the early stuff, it's just solid 12th century pottery by the looks of it.
And it's cookery?
Well, they were general purpose pots. I mean, imagine a sort of the early medieval equivalent of a brown paper bag that you could cook in. Okay.
So we now have evidence that people may have been living on top of Castle Hill in the medieval period. And all afternoon, the archaeologists have been sifting through the rubble in Phil's trench in search of building foundations. Have you established whether this is rubble or could it be something more substantial?
That's what we're trying to do now, Tony. I mean, we've got it all cleaned up. We've really got to strip it off and find out whether it's masking a wall or whether it is just rubble. This does look like a very, very good contender for a foundation trench. You can see we've got a lovely edge coming along one edge there and then another edge back here. So that, if that is a wall, it's going to be a really deep, substantial wall.
But this is where you've extended the trench. That is some hole you've put in there.
Yeah, we still haven't got to the bottom of it. This is John's central pillar.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it is literally going down and down and down and down.
You haven't found any evidence of it yet?
Not of the wall, no. I mean, I think it's literally the decayed mortar from where they robbed that stonework out.
Meanwhile, Alex and Mark have made their way 1.5 miles down the road to look at another hill. They want to work out if that could be the one mentioned in the records.
So here we go, Mark.
When do we get it described, this site, as Crow Castle?
Well, yeah, it's a late reference. It's sort of 18th, 19th century. It's the first one I can find at the moment.
What I think is significant about this site is the fact that we are much closer to the town of Crewkerne. If someone says, my castle at Crewkerne, there's the town. So, you know, Castle Hill is a mile or so further away. Yeah. So that would argue in favour of this site.
Yeah.
And it's not just a hill, is it, that's been christened Crow Castle, because we've got some actual earthworks. This is a modified hill.
So there's a number of factors in favour of this site as a castle, and I quite like the idea that in the immediate aftermath of the Battle of Hastings, you've got rebellion, and there's a desire amongst the Normans to kind of look down on the Anglo-Saxons so that they can't get bands together and attack the invading Normans.
So this hill, much closer to Crewkerne, could well be the site of the castle in the historical records. If that's the case, then what are we digging up on Castle Hill? A forgotten castle or something else? We don't tend to see many yurts on Time Team, but the team have taken to them like ducks to water. Reminds you all of Glastonbury, doesn't it? Look at you all.
It's very civilised. Here you go, Tony.
Well, thank you. Bunch of hippies having a cup of tea of an evening. End of day one, have we got a castle?
Well, what we have definitely got is a mid-12th century castle at Crook. Whether this is Crook Castle, anybody's guess.
And I've been out looking at a site called Crow Castle, close to Crewkerne, and that's increasingly looking like a candidate for this castle that's referred to.
Which raises the question, if this isn't a Norman castle, what is it? Mick?
Yeah, but I mean, look at the latest geophysics. There's our trench, which is producing buildings and Norman pottery on the top. But you can now see we've got 3 lines of ditches. That one, this one here, and then one outer here. And they could be the triple ditches of an Iron Age fort, a prehistoric fort. So, you know, it might be that it's got an earlier past as well as the Norman stuff.
So is this site prehistoric? Is it Norman? Beginning of day 2 here at Castle Hill in Somerset. We haven't shown you this side of the hill before. It's the less steep side that our 4x4s use to get to the top, the sort of tradesman's entrance. We're attempting to uncover a mysterious lost structure on the top of Castle Hill. Phil's put in a trench over the summit where radar has definitely detected a large rectangular building. and Rakshaw's been digging in what may turn out to be the defensive ditch surrounding it. Initially, we thought we were finding evidence for a stone-built castle, but a discovery early this morning suggests we may have been on the wrong track. Phil was pretty confident about what was happening in this trench, but he said we'd know more once we lifted this rubble. Well, as you can see, we have lifted half of it, and there's this little scatter of stones down there, which has caused a little bit of a disagreement between my colleagues. What are those stones?
Well, we think it's a post hole. We think there's been a big timber in there, and those stones are the packing round it.
And what do you think that means?
I think there might be a big timber building here that's underneath all the stonework that we've got.
Yeah, but you're ignoring the radar.
Go on then.
Where we put the trench in yesterday,
yeah,
remember, it was on the magnetic noise. We hadn't got the radar results at that stage. We then extended the trench because we'd got what we thought was a central pier on the radar.
The big hole that Phil had.
The big hole.
Yep.
But the strongest evidence for stone footings are at either side of this trench.
So you're saying that rather than being a wooden building or a building with wooden supports like Mick's saying, it could still be a stone building, except we just haven't picked up those stone walls yet?
Yes.
I think there are other possibilities as well, though, because, I mean, we could have had a timber building replaced by a stone building, or the rubble that we've got could be the platform for a big box frame building on big, 18-inch square timbers, and then you still might have a stone building, which, as you're saying, we haven't seen yet. But we can get this wall over here if we extend the trench that way, can't we?
I think we've got to do that because we've got to test this theory.
See how quickly he moved away from his wooden building theory. I'm with you, John. He's right.
You wait and see. You wait and see.
If Mick's right, this could turn out to be a timber-built castle with stone supports. In the meantime, we're going to extend Phil's trench and look for any undiscovered stone walls. And in Rakshaw's trench, Mary-Ann is catching up on some of the many finds from the previous day that may give us an idea of the date of the site.
They're beavering away in trench 2. There's some finds that are coming out.
There are some good finds, and we're actually very excited.
We are indeed.
This is what looks like to be a medieval pin.
And would that have been used on clothing?
Yeah, so it would have fastened. I'm not quite sure if there was a clasp, but it's definitely some kind of pin fastening on some kind of garment. It's really beautiful. It's made out of copper alloy. If you kind of move it around in the sunlight, you can almost see the gold gilding on it.
So very high status, fancy goods.
Yeah, but the exciting thing is it came out of what looks like to be a pit stroke ditch. We're not entirely sure yet. It's full of 12th century medieval pottery.
Pretty good start for day 2, isn't it?
Good for one trench.
We think so.
Yeah.
Over in Phil's trench, we've been opening up a large hole where we thought there could have been a central pillar. But we haven't yet found a base for it, so we're digging deeper and deeper.
It'd be nice to actually see where the bottom is.
Meanwhile, Alex is listening to farmers' tales about some large stones ploughed up many years ago on Castle Hill.
But Andrew's told me that you were up here in the 1960s working down this land with a tractor, is that right?
Yeah, this was a hill that was non-productive agriculture. So we thought, well, let's have a go at putting a rotavator and try and reclaim it and get a bit more agricultural use out of it. And then we got the plough up, and there was these 2 big stones. And I could see they were going to be a nuisance, they were going to break the farm machinery. So, as a responsible person, I just dropped the plough and gently pushed them out of the way.
So you just sort of pushed them to the edge of this steep slope here,
thinking, well, no one will ever want to see them again, and these are out the way so we can plough the field.
And then we turn up.
You all turn up. And all of a sudden, these stones seem to be quite famous, and I can't find them.
If these stones weren't natural, it's further proof of a man-made structure on top of Castle Hill.
So where do you think this stone came from then?
Oh, over there.
Yeah, in the distance you can see the Ham Hill quarry. All the local stone in the areas comes from that quarry originally, from Ham Hill quarry.
Right, so potentially then, if we've got the Normans or later building a castle up here, that's the type of stone they'd instantly go to, you think?
That's right, and it's obviously not that far.
Right, so maybe we should then think about going over there and have a look and see what they've got. And we should let you get back to your cows.
That's very kind of you.
Alex and Andrew head off to Ham Hill Quarry to investigate this local source of building material. In the meantime, Mary-Ann's trying to find out whether our pottery finds date from the main period of Norman castle building.
All the evidence is looking mid-12th century, but the Norman invasion was 1066.
It was, and we do have the majority of castles built immediately after 1066. However, in the middle of the 12th century, you have a period which historians call the Anarchy, rather evocatively.
Yeah.
We have a civil war between, on the one hand, King Stephen and his cousin Matilda. So these are grandchildren of William the Conqueror struggling for the throne. And what it leads to very quickly is a civil war.
That people have called the Anarchy.
That people have called the Anarchy. As soon as government breaks down, as soon as there is a civil war, people start building castles.
So there's rich men doing big building works, but also this kind of idea of forced labour constructing castles or fortifications.
There's a rush to refortify. One of the best illustrations of the way that royal power collapses in the middle of Stephen's reign, in the middle of the 12th century, is the coinage. The coinage had always been, since the 10th century, one coin with the king's head on it, and that ran throughout all of the kingdom. In Stephen's reign, Stephen's coins are only found in the east and the southeast. In the southwest, where we are, there are coins being issued for Matilda. And you also get even individual barons issuing their own coin. So you have two sides competing for people's affiliation and fighting against each other. So there's always the possibility of extreme violence.
It's not a great time to live, and it's always the peasants who suffer.
The sand is reddened, so it's burnt. There's a lot of burning there, and there's actually quite a bit of charcoal in there as well.
This means we could be looking for a lost Anarchy period castle rather than a conquest one. It's too early to tell for sure, and in the meantime, things seem to be getting ever more confusing.
We really don't know. You're so sort of convinced that it's a castle. I mean, you know, it's kind of, oh, it's a stone castle, and oh, it's a wooden castle. What happens if it isn't a castle?
We're halfway through the dig, but are we any closer to solving the mystery of Castle Hill?
Hello.
Remind me, what is the date of the pottery that we've got up here?
Tony, it's all mid-12th century, nothing from the 11th century, which means that it can't be a 1066 conquest castle. It has to have come from this King Stephen reign of anarchy.
And if it was an anarchy castle that was put up in a hurry, then that would explain why it's not on the records, because it would have been pulled down again really quickly once the anarchy was over.
And also, it's not to say that it wasn't a massive timber structure, because, you know, they built it to mean it, but it also would explain why there wouldn't be documentary evidence. People weren't sitting down scribbling notes about what was going on where. It was a pretty chaotic time. It's exciting. The history and the archaeology are actually fitting together.
Which they don't often do they? It's a great theory, but will it stand up in a few hours' time, or will the archaeologists have thought of something entirely different? We just have to wait and see, won't we? It's the afternoon of day 2 in Crewkerne in South Somerset, and we're digging up a large hilltop structure which we're hoping could be a medieval castle. Evidence now suggests it may be a timber castle dating from the Anarchy period in the 12th century. And a new find in Rackshaw's Trench may help us confirm that. Rackshaw?
Hiya.
Word is you've got a good find.
The word on the street is correct.
Let's have a look.
I have this lovely horse riding spur.
A spur?
Yeah.
It certainly is, isn't it?
Yes. If you put it that way up, the heel, the rider's heel would be here, and then you would be goading the horse with that pointy bit there.
Any idea of a date?
Well, we're actually hoping it's 12th century because it's come out of this massive pit that we're digging at the moment, and all the pottery that's come out of it is 12th century.
So if it was, then that too could be part of the Anarchy Wars.
That's what we're hoping.
Where there are spurs, there must have been horses. So does that mean somebody was keeping cavalry up on Castle Hill?
We've got horses and we've got people spurring them. We've got horsemen. The medieval French word for horseman is chevalier. So we've got knights. And knights go with castles like ham and eggs, you know. So this is good stuff, the fact that we've got that spur.
And what does that mean for how they're managing this landscape?
When we're talking about castles in this period, they're functioning as cavalry forts. Okay, they're a place where you can keep 30, 40, 100 men, horsemen, and they can ride out from that castle and control the area.
Does that mean there should be evidence of more buildings than just this central squarish tower?
We certainly expect more. I mean, in a sense, the tower is just the sort of pièce de résistance. That's the tower crowning the mound. It's the lookout. It's the symbol of lordship. But we're going to have places for knights to sleep, so a hall of some kind. We're going to have places for horses to sleep, i.e. stables.
There should be a bit more evidence on the top of that hill.
I think there should have been a fair few buildings on that hill, yeah.
There could be more outlying buildings still waiting to be discovered up on the hilltop. And Phil seems to be making a breakthrough as he extends his trench to where the first radar survey picked up signs of stone remains.
Now look, that is looking a bit more solid, isn't it?
So it looks as if we've got a wall, doesn't it, Phil?
The more of it we see, Mick,
yeah,
the more it does look like a wall. I mean, when we first got down on it,
yeah,
well, you wouldn't really know whether it was just a block of masonry or something like that, but it's getting bigger and bigger. But what is it, Mick?
Is it a wall, Phil?
Ah, but it might be a wall, but is it a castle?
Is it a keep? Is it a hall? Is it a chapel even? You know? Could be any of those, couldn't it?
You better go and ponder on these things.
I'm pondering as I sit here, Phil.
So the story turns yet again. Substantial stone walls means that the stone building theory is winning out over the notion of a timber structure. There's not yet enough evidence to prove it's a castle, but this dig's not over yet. One thing's for certain, building any type of stone structure up on this hill would have required a massive investment of manpower. The best local source of stone is found at Ham Hill Quarry, 10 miles up the road. Quarrying it and transporting it in the medieval period was no mean feat.
You've got here an enormous block of ham stone. And you work in these quarries, is that right?
Yes, we do.
This is the stone that they're using to build all sorts of buildings from the medieval period right up to the present day, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And what's it like to work?
It can be very hard. It's not the best of stones. You've got to pick through it to sort the best out. It suffers from clay beds and iron faults. But with modern technology, you can cut round the problem sort of thing.
So with modern technology,
it's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
What would it have been like in the medieval period?
Very difficult.
Do you want to show me some of the techniques they would have used?
They would have used a pick similar to this. We've been in here. As they got deeper down, they would have different picks also with longer handles, so they could work in a more upright position.
I guess it's time then I had a crack at this just to see what it's like. The safety goggles on.
There you go.
Here we go. Right. Barely having any effect whatsoever here. And that really isn't easy, that. So that's one pass through I've done there. But that'd probably take me about 3 weeks then, that would, I think. Yeah. Let's just say theoretically then, I have worked out a significant block of stone. First you've got to get it out of the quarry face, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've got a bit of stone over here.
We've got a piece of stone here with a bedding fault through it.
Right.
Shows you how it would have been done, how the natural bed is here, in the stone here, and they would have driven the chisels in along here to split the stone on its natural bed.
Should we have a crack at that?
We can have a go if we want, yeah.
But this is a two-bloke job.
Yes, one has to hit it, one has to hold it.
So one's got to trust the other.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the quarryman. Shall I? I'll be chisel monkey.
Yeah. Work into the stone. He's gone in there now, you see. And now,
right. You can see that actually. That's really smooth, isn't it? That is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to think about how we're going to get it from here all the way to our site.
Good luck, rather you than me, Alex. That thing weighs a ton. Back on site, we're digging even deeper. We had expected to find evidence of a large supporting pillar in the middle of this trench, but now the picture's looking very different. You got a bit of construction work going on here.
Yeah, Tony, we've literally taken it down another layer, but we still haven't got the bottom.
I don't understand though, because you said that you thought that there would be a platform for a big pillar about 2 metres down.
That is literally what we thought it was going to be, but I think we've got to scrap that idea. All we've got is this whacking great hole that is filled up with loose gravel.
Why are you still going down?
Because we'd like to get to the bottom. We really do want to know what it is.
Yeah.
At the moment, we haven't got the foggiest idea what this hole represents, but if you come over here, I'll show you something that we do know about. Look, we've got a wall here. And it's not just here, it extends right the way across this end of the trench.
John, you must be chuffed. This is what you prophesied would be here this morning.
Yeah, so look, this is where Phil's got to. There's a clear wall there. OK, it's been robbed out at the end, but there's no doubt there's another wall that comes back on the far side. We have got a stone building here.
Ah, but is it a castle?
So now we're absolutely certain we've got a decent-sized stone building here, but we still can't be 100% sure whether it's a castle. Are the finds coming out of Rakshas's trench able to add anything to our understanding of the site?
So what you got there then, Paul?
A whacking great tripod pitcher. It's basically an enormous jug with little feet on the bottom. This is all the same pot, and a lot of these sherds fit together as well. Raksha's still digging it out. Oh, good grief! As I was saying, Raksha's still digging it out. These things can be anything up to this high.
Oh, right.
You know, you got one of these, it's a big round thing. That's an awful lot of pottery.
And what sort of date we're talking about?
It's looking, from what I can tell, like late 12th into 13th. I mean, this sort of pottery starts in the 11th, but it kind of gets nicer quality as time goes on. And this is quite good quality.
Is it the sort of thing you'd use for cooking?
No, I don't think so. It's the sort of thing that, it's a jug, so it would hold liquids. But some of them join together already. I'll get this cleaned up first, and then we can have a look.
Dig more, dig more.
I'm trying, it's really difficult.
Promising finds with pottery dating from the 12th and 13th century. But we still don't know for certain if we've got a castle here, and now we've only got 1 day left. The wind up there. Cool.
I know it's a different world down here. It's
With a day's digging and some heavy quarrying behind us, Mary Ann has prepared some medieval workers' grub. What's all this then?
Welcome to my medieval mead and cheese evening. Kindly supplied by the lovely landowners.
That's very kind of you. So where does this cheese come from then?
It's all local, the bread, the cheese, the mead.
Fantastic.
mead. What, haven't got anything else?
You drink your mead. You're going to stab the mead.
Workers can't be choosers.
You remember 3.5 hours ago, we had that conversation where we said we know exactly what this site is.
Yeah.
It was a temporary structure thrown up in the Civil War. The reason there are no records for it was because it was made of wood, so it all was pulled back down again.
Where are you going with that?
John was right. Phil's just found a stone wall up there.
That throws our theory out the window.
Completely.
We've only got a day to get to the end of this puzzle.
By the end of which, will we have a castle to show the family? Or will it be something else?
Could be a chapel.
You think it'll be a chapel?
Well, it could be.
What do you think it'll be?
God, it could be anything as long as it's not mead. Haven't you got anything else to drink?
Try that, that's the local cider.
That's got to be better, isn't it?
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
And thank you for the mead.
And the cider.
Beginning of day 3 here on the infuriating Castle Hill in Somerset, which adamantly refuses to give up its secrets easily. Over the last 2 days, at one time or another, we've thought we had a Norman castle up here, a stone one, a wooden one. The fact is, we still know virtually nothing about it at all. It's all castles in the air, isn't it, Mick?
No.
What? What? We don't know anything.
I just heard you whinging away coming up the hill there.
It's not a whinge, it's an objective statement.
No, it's not.
Come on then, what do we know about it? How old is it?
How old is it? Well, if it's the documents, it's mid-12th century.
If, yeah.
Yeah, well, we've got very few finds.
What shape is it?
It's rectangular.
You don't know
Yeah.
it's rectangular?
Well, I think we do. If that's what the geophysics is showing, and we've got a rectangular building of that.
So what's your strategy going to be?
We're going to put a slot in over there to get the other wall, and we're going to put a slot in over here to get the end.
Why are you going to do that, Mick?
To get the corners to it.
To prove it's rectangular, because
Yeah.
you don't know that it's rectangular
I
yet.
think we do. It's too early for all these cerebral activities. Get me a cup of coffee and then ask me again.
All right, I'll come back in an hour.
Right.
So we're going to extend Phil's trench to the south and west to search for the building's corners and see if it is indeed rectangular as Mick thinks it should be. With a bit of luck, this could give us the clinching evidence for the foundations of a castle.
If we give it another half bucket, let's say out there, and then we'll maybe push on back a bit.
And Matt thinks he may just have found the western corner of the building's stone wall. It's increasingly looking like a castle keep.
Oh, yeah, you're well onto it, aren't you? Because I've just got the edge. I think I might have the edge here. Can you see the sand?
That's definitely it there.
Yeah. And there's the sand again. So the corner, yeah, it's right in front of you there, like this. We'll remove this backfill. We'll have the full length of the castle then, haven't we?
Down at base camp, Paul's got some of the pieces from the jug he found in Rakshaw's trench. He's hoping that the high-powered microscope will give us some clues as to what it was used for.
The inner surface of the pot at the bottom is quite degraded, and apparently fermentation causes pots with, especially with limestone on the inside, for the inner surface to flake off. The lactic acid in the fermented liquid attacks the inner surface of the pot.
When you say fermenting liquids, am I saying beer?
Almost certainly, yeah.
That's telling us something about what they were doing at the top of that hill. I mean, they were living there, drinking their beer out of their pitchers.
Well, they drank a lot of beer in the medieval period. It was safer than drinking the water. You see documentary references to beer being referred to as liquid bread. I mean, it was a good source of calories as well, as people drank anything between 4 and 8 pints of beer a day. Children as well.
Lots of pitchers then.
Yes.
With some skillful handiwork, Paul glues together the 28 shards of pottery making up the side of this jug. It had 3 little feet on the bottom, a spout and a handle on the top, and probably dates from the 13th century. A good find, but it still doesn't tell us who these people were or what they were doing here. For the rest of the day, the archaeology team really needs to get motoring. It's hard going, but everybody knows this is our last chance. And Matt just made another important discovery. Matt, this is a pretty weird-looking trench, isn't it? About 9/10 of it seems unexplored, and there's just you beavering away here.
Well, this trench was positioned here to find the southwest corner of the structure, and that's what we've got. And if you look on the geophysics here, we've got a strong corner behind us there. We've got the wall line over there, nothing much over here, and so we thought, well, here-ish, and we'll catch it somewhere, and we did. We've caught it right on the edge of the trench here. So this is your western edge. This is the foundation trench. We're digging it out.
Have you got it where it turns?
We have, yes. It comes along here, and that is the southern edge there. So the actual corner of the building is just about there.
Well done, you just got it.
Just about.
That's the southwest corner of the building found, and in the southeast corner, Phil's found a fascinating piece of evidence. It's forcing us into yet another rethink. Phil, are we beginning to understand what's going on here?
Oh, absolutely, Tony. We are looking at the corner of the building. Here's the outside corner just in front of us here, and you can see the outside line of the wall. You go see it straight through, and you can actually see the edge of the foundation.
What, just sort of
that's
all the way
right, and in
right
fact
down
you can
to here?
There, just a little bit in front of you is the edge. There you go. Where you're standing is the edge of the foundation trench. And you can see that line comes all the way through towards me. That is the end of the building. Can you get out of my trench? I've cleaned that, please. So that is the outside corner of the building. The inside building is immediately in front of where James is.
James, can you show me where the inside of the building is? You know when you said in your po-faced way like you always do, get out of my trench, please?
Yes.
That was just when I was coming to this stuff here. What's all this?
Well, there's a very strong possibility that that's mortar that has squeezed out of the joints between the stones as they're actually building the castle.
Well, why didn't they clear it all away?
Yes, but that could mean that the actual building was never actually finished. And the point of it is, if you finish a building, you would tidy up all that sort of muck. Maybe they just never finished it.
That's intriguing. Do you want me to get a couple of bits of strings and tie them round? Too late, it's gone. An unfinished castle is an idea that the records seem to support. According to the historians, this was nothing out of the ordinary during the time of the Anarchy.
We've got pottery, late 12th century. We've got a massive stone foundation of one building, and we don't hear of it afterwards at all. I wonder whether this is started and unfinished. It's not uncommon then, actually, for people to start out with some grandiose idea, dig the foundations, then political changes or changes in the family or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. When you talk about the family, with the Redvers family, Baldwin de Redvers dies in 1155. He's succeeded by a succession of short-lived heirs. Anything could have stopped the building programme and just thought, we pack up shop.
So we've gone from a timber castle to a stone castle to an unfinished stone castle. Chaps, we've only got a matter of hours. How are we going to resolve this?
We just carry on digging, you know, we carry on thinking about it. I mean, if we've changed our mind that often in 2.5 days, who knows what will happen by the end
You'll
of
have
the day.
about 7 more ideas between tea now.
Almost certainly.
So an unfinished castle is now our favourite theory, and we know it's a real historical possibility.
Let's get the tailgate on.
Given how hard it's proved for Alex to hack stone out of the quarry, it wouldn't come as any shock to him to learn the castle was unfinished.
I've certainly never transported anything quite as heavy as this.
No, it's fair weight, isn't it?
So it should be fun. Yeah, let's see how we get on.
We've asked Alex and Andrew to use a traditional means of transport to bring the stone to site. It's proving far from straightforward.
Good boy, Robbie.
Large shire horses came to Britain with the Normans. These are heavy animals and need careful handling. After a couple of hours slogging it out on the roads, there's still a fair way to go. Let's hope they get back while there's still daylight. Back on site, it's been all hands to the pump as the end of day approaches.
Hey, Ed, could you come back a bit longer? Just a little bit more to have a look at.
But has it been enough? Can we say for certain what type of building stood on Castle Hill back in the Middle Ages? This morning, I gave Mick a really hard time about the fact that we hardly knew any more about this so-called castle than we had done when we first arrived a couple of days ago. So, Mick, what do we know?
I think we know the size of it, which you were whinging on about this morning, don't we?
Which was?
That's right. I mean, in its long dimension, it's 17 metres outside to outside and width 13 metres.
The actual thickness of the walls is about 3 metres, isn't it?
About 3 metres, yeah.
The fact that it's rectangular rather than square, perhaps the 1170s, something like 1180s, perhaps something like that, in style terms. But I mean, the other thing is that I seriously doubt whether it was ever finished, actually.
Why do you say that?
Well, there isn't enough later material for activity after 1200, you know, there's very little pottery and stuff like that. We don't have any bits of Romanesque sculpture. It's like as if they haven't got that far yet with it.
What do you think the walls were made of, or would have been made of?
It must have been a stone-built building. I'm sure it must have been a stone-built building.
And
It's not likely to have been timber framed.
And they must have been intending for it to go up quite a way.
One thing I think you can be sure about it was that it was an incredible outlay of labour.
Yeah.
All this stone had to be brought up here.
What about this huge pit thing that we've got?
Yeah, well, I think that's a well they're building. There are very few keeps and stone towers on Norman castles which don't have a well built into them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they are the most colossal engineering feats. You take somewhere like Bamborough Castle up in Northumberland that we looked at. There's a well there that is cut through the dolerite. I mean, that rock's like steel, and yet they hacked all the way through it to get to the water table.
Does a well make sense to you?
Well, I don't see why not. You see, that all adds strength to the idea that it was never finished, because we've dug it down 3.5 metres and we haven't got any hint of lining. Now, I can't believe that if they'd have lined that well, completed it, that they would have robbed out 3.5 metres of well.
Absolutely.
Isn't there one thing that blows your 1170 dating right out of the water?
Go on.
We've found 13th century pottery on the site.
Well, we do, but we don't have very much of it, and most of it seems to be some sort of picture. I wonder whether that is not the refreshments for the people demolishing it.
Isn't that special pleading?
Well, it could be, but it's the sort of thing that Paul was coming out with. There's not enough.
Paul, our pottery expert.
Paul, pottery. There's not enough of it for occupation.
So the mystery of Castle Hill has finally been solved. There was a castle here, but it wasn't quite what any of us were expecting.
It's been 3 pretty hectic days, but I think we're finally ready to tell you what is on top of Castle Hill.
Wow.
It is a castle. But the surprise is, though, it was never finished.
But the reason that it wasn't finished may simply have been that the family who owned the land fell on rather hard times.
It might have just been that they ran out of money and they didn't have anyone to take on the building project.
Wow.
But the truth is, the size of the foundations is absolutely epic. 3-metre wide walls, up to 80 feet high.
Wow.
Gosh.
Imagine up there, imagine what that would have looked like if there had ever been a completed castle on top of that. From the foundations and walls we've discovered, we can now tell what the castle would have looked like if it had ever been finished. The keep would have measured 17 metres long and 13 metres wide, with 3-metre thick walls made of stone, probably from the local quarry. It's very likely that the big mysterious pit in the middle was a well that was also never completed. And from some of the pottery, we know the unfinished castle was finally abandoned and torn down in the middle of the 13th century. An incredible amount of labour for the men who brought stone to build the castle, only for it to be torn down again. Alex.
Stand there, Robbie.
Tony. We don't need it.
You don't need the stone?
The castle never got finished.
You're joking.
No. Can you turn around and take it back again?
No, I cannot. You don't need a stone for a rockery, do you?